Welcome to the Benning Report. Coming up in this edition, improved marksmanship techniques yield expert results.
And Ranger students are assessed on hand-to-hand combat.
Later, what is the Old Guard doing on Fort Benning? Welcome to the Benning Report. I'm Nicole Randall.
And I'm Melissa Bell with the Fort Benning Public Affairs Office. Thanks for watching.
Becoming an expert marksman is an accomplishment for any soldier, but for basic trainees only weeks into their career, it's much more than that. One company in the 198th Infantry Brigade recently had quite a few trainees achieve this recognition. A company of the 254 Infantry Regiment 198th Infantry Brigade recently had 97 expert marksmen come out of their basic training class, and the company attributes it to hard work, extra effort, and innovative technique.
We took a different approach to this last cycle when it came to more instruction. We wanted to see if the soldiers were able to comprehend more comprehensive technology. We also spent more time in the computers with the engagement skills trainer. We spent a lot of time, more time than other companies do, at the location of miss and hit, which is the Loma range, where they actually can get feedback the second the round strikes the target or is near the target.
This increased level of expert marksmen coming out of basic training is due to the amount of time and effort that the drill sergeants put in. And one platoon leader in particular made sure his students went into their qualifications with strong technique.
Particularly in my platoon, what I did is I signed out a bunch, maybe about 25 lasers, used shadow boxes, diamond washer drills where you put a little cleaner rod on the end of the barrel and you put a dime on it and you practice your trigger squeeze. Our platoon put the most time into that, and the zeroing, we had a lot of time and effort into making sure the zero was correct, so maybe that had a little bit to do with it.
Not only can drill sergeants coordinate and plan extra training, just their presence allows the trainees to ask the right person the right questions.
Most of the time, the trainees have all these questions that they usually ask their peers or their battle buddies, and they get the wrong information from those peers. And in turn, when the drill sergeants are there, we actually get to teach them how to shoot Army style, if you will.
But as with everything in the Army, training these young soldiers is a team effort, and it takes an entire company to raise a trainee.
I think for the most part, in Alpha Company, all our drill sergeants work together, and we have a good team, which contributes to not just our platoon, but the entire company.
This, along with the dedicated drill sergeants, will hopefully see many more basic trainees come out of their first Army training experts. Nicole Randall, Fort Benning TV.
The Warrior Athletic Training Program employs certified health professionals from Auburn University to care for the physical condition and well-being of Fort Benning soldiers. In this story, we profile athletic trainer Christine Beckman and her work with the U.S. Army Combative School.
The United States Army Combative Course is one of the most physically demanding courses a soldier will endure. Injuries are common, but there's no time for them for anyone looking to graduate. This is Christine Beckman. She is a certified athletic trainer for the Warrior Athletic Training Program. Under her watchful gaze, students in the Combatives course engage in high-impact workouts. Assigned full-time to this course, Christine is a constant presence on the sidelines, poised to provide medical attention when needed.
You are an athlete when you're a member of our armed forces. If we have to patch up a cut very quickly, I'm sidelined right there, and then they go right back into their training. So, you know, just little things like that minimize training time loss. But it's also, we can catch any injuries that happen. I can catch very early on.
The WAT program just expanded this year to include the combatives, but Christine is already a familiar and welcome sight for both cadre and students. Everyone knows that if a soldier has a physical issue, she has the professional expertise needed to quickly assess and treat the injury.
So what would take a soldier 2 to 3 hours to be seen for, it takes about 10-15 minutes, and then they're back on the mat and training again.
It's really easy to break it, and it's not good vascular structure. Let's tape you up.
The critical aspect of the WAT program is its commitment to placing professional certified athletic trainers where they are needed. The physicality of the combatives course places a premium on safety and requires Beckman's vigilance. It's a job that keeps an athletic trainer busy but one in which she thrives.
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
You need more?
No, I'll get it.
All right, keep me updated. And being here constantly, the students develop a trust with me, and we're able to minimize injury risk just by the fact that I'm here, and we can get that early recognition that we really need.
The Warrior Athletic Training Program's partnership between Fort Benning and Auburn University allows trainers like Beckman to combine their expertise with their passion for our military. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
Non-commissioned officers are the backbone of the Army, and to keep their professional development strong, they need to attend functional courses. One Fort Benning instructor recently switched roles from trainer to student to take advantage of his career-enhancing assignment on Fort Benning.
Non-commissioned officers, instructors, cadre, drill sergeants.
Night.
All teachers, mentors, and sponsors of student soldiers. But while they continue to progress the careers of their pupils, they need to do more than just instruct. They should also maintain their own professional development.
It's important enough to me that it's one of our requirements for all instructors, and it's part of our certification package. It's part of our instructor development plan, not that they just come here and stay current with doctrine, but also they have the opportunity to attend a functional course that's offered here in the Maneuver Center of Excellence. It's also a way to make them relevant when they go back out to the force, so they're still current on all doctrine and operations.
When it does that and the bolt moves to the rear, it's going to cause it to cycle left and right.
One Maneuver Senior Leaders Course instructor recently attended Ranger School. With no more advantage than his own determination, Sergeant First Class McQuality not only made it through Ranger School over the age of 30, he was also the honor graduate of his class.
Good line of fire, especially in Afghanistan, right?
For me personally, it's being the example, because we need good examples in the military. Going into Ranger School, I was a little worried about being a little older and wondering how I would do if I would make it through and fit in, but it makes you feel pretty good when you get out.
Sergeant McQuality serves as an inspiration to other NCOs and his students, pushing them to attend functional and leadership courses like Ranger School and continue to better their own Army careers.
It's always important to have professional development because you always have to grow. It's a lifelong learning process that we always have to endure. And if you're not, you're slowing down and you're getting behind your peers. So you always have to reach for something and continue your education.
Steel hook in the ground and the ladder. Walk until you hit water.
We're going to keep the best. It's not re-enlisting the first 10 in line, it's re-enlisting the 10 best qualified NCOs, and allows you to take those skills back to the force to train your subordinates and to serve as that example. I think that's the direction that the Army's headed.
With a downsizing force, every soldier and NCO can take every opportunity to continue their professional development and education to ensure the future strength of the Army's backbone. Nicole, Randall, Fort Benning TV.
Best Warrior hopefuls from the 926th Engineer Battalion battled it out recently as teams vie for a chance to represent their unit in the finals.
Engineers from the 926th Engineer Battalion competed on Fort Benning in a battalion-wide competition that determines who will get to the next echelon and compete in the Best Warrior competition.
We want to see who's the best, who knows the most about AWT tasks, weapons qualification, but we also test physical attributes as well. And basically whoever comes out on top is considered the best warrior.
Even though events in this competition are not limited to engineer tasks, these soldiers were up to the challenge to prove they know warrior tasks and infantry skills.
We are an engineering unit, and we want to show that not only do we push dirt, heavy equipment, but also that we have to do our warrior tasks. We have to do the basic infantry skills, and they have to be proficient in that.
Coming from Alabama, Florida, and Georgia, events included everything from physical stamina to weapon knowledge and functions tests, even calling in a 9-line medevac,
dust off, this is quarterback,
and assembling 3 firearms with the pieces mixed up.
You have 5 minutes.
Not only did they qualify on a 9mm pistol, but also an M4, M16, and the 240 Bravo.
The targets came up. If they hit it, they scored. If they did not, they had 200 rounds to score as many hits as they could using the 100, 200, 300, and 400 meter targets.
What you have to remember is you have to do anywhere from 6 to 9 round bursts. And it's not like using an M16. You generally have to walk this into your target. It's not really a point weapon. It's more of an area weapon.
After this battalion-wide competition, champions will proceed to the next stage, where they hope to continue on to the Army-wide Best Warrior.
I'm looking forward to it. I did find some weaknesses here, which I'm glad I did. So I have a chance, opportunity to work on those and hopefully do well in the next level.
Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
Coming up next, the responsibility of Fort Benning's Black Hawk pilots. As we continue our coverage on Ranger School's assessment phase, we look at the end of Day 1, Combatives, where students learn the necessities of close combat situations.
It's only Day 1 of Ranger School, and nearly 30% of Ranger students have already been dropped.
Begin!
Those who are left have proven they have the physical stamina and the water confidence to survive and face the next 60 days of Ranger School.
Drop! Ready to lead the way!
As the sun begins to set on this first day, students finish it out with a combatives class, where they learn how a knife can be quite an asset.
Relax. Knives are the secondary weapon system for Rangers. They can use knives because it will build aggression for the Ranger and allow them to close with the enemy. So this just increases the distance that they can fight the enemy at.
Kill! In close combat situations or even during a weapons malfunction, Rangers need to have the skills to adapt and overcome.
On guard! Kill! We go through the drills multiple times, all the drills. The soldiers conduct them both offensive and defensive with their Ranger buddy.
As well as other basics of knife fighting techniques like how to conduct an attack and the importance of body position and leading with the dominant foot.
Offensive drill 5, go.
But to start the class, Ranger students must first learn where to carry their knife and how to create a good economy of motion free from obstructions.
Having that good fluid movement from point A to point B and snapping into a good offensive body position.
I've built confidence in the Ranger and provides that added sense of realism so that when they're out in the real world conducting patrolling operations and search for the enemy, they know that they have these skills in their back pocket to use if necessary.
Step forward, step forward. Step forward, get aggressive. Get through.
By creating this muscle memory through repetition, Ranger students will be able to look back on these techniques.
Even when they're in combat, some of these guys will think back to what they did in Ranger School. It'll give them the confidence to go further, faster, and fight harder than any other soldier.
Offensive drill 2.
And even though soldiers won't be dropped during this block of instruction, they're always being evaluated and can still earn a major or minor minus.
Shoulder. A little louder,
to the
Ranger.
chest,
to the abdomen, down to the hip, Ranger. Do it. Kill!
What I look for is I want to see a Ranger student that aggressively attacks with the techniques that he's learned. And I want to see a student that can perform the techniques correctly at all times and pays attention to the instruction.
After nearly 19 hours of Day 1 behind them, students must continue to give 110% because these skills can save lives.
When they take these skills out into the real world and back into ForceCom, they'll be able to utilize them and train their soldiers as well as use them in real life.
Work as a team. If you want to be here, if you don't start now, you ain't gonna make it.
As they finish up Day 1, students are pushed until the very end.
Ready? Exercise. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 2.
They're exhausted and looking forward to a little bit of sleep and a few moments of rest before they begin Day 2 and continue on to land navigation just hours away.
Nobody here is gonna feel sorry for you. 64 out of 102.
Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
Roger, Sergeant! The push-up! The push-up!
Fort Benning's Ranger Flight Company is an elite unit who supports the training of courses across the MCOE. With inclement weather, risky missions, and regular training, the pilots have to be at the top of their game.
The Ranger Flight Company is made up of pilots, crew chiefs, and other personnel who keep the Black Hawk Incorporated training at its very best to support Fort Benning's courses and students.
It is high standards because you're entrusted with the safety of, 12 individuals that have no idea what's going on. So the standards that we hold are meant to keep everybody safe while getting the job done.
A mission with one of the highest risk assessments is Spies and Fries, an insertion and extraction system that allows for soldiers to be dropped off and picked up quickly.
We come in, shoot the approach to whatever hover target that we need to. At that point, we just maintain a stable hover. We take all cues from our crew chiefs and the Fries or Spies masters who are really doing the lion's share of the work. Basically, it consists of a 120-foot line that has several connectors to it where you can basically dangle it below the aircraft and
connect up teams so you can pick them up and pull them out. A high-speed way of getting troops into the battlefield in an area that you can't land.
While the risk in Spies and Fries is mostly with the ground element, the pilot is still responsible for everything and everyone in their aircraft.
In combat or in training, everything that goes on under this rotor system belongs to the pilot in command. Much like a company commander is responsible for his entire company, the pilot in command is responsible for everything in the aircraft. To support that, we have crew briefs, passenger briefs, things that are supposed to keep things going safely. There's always a brief ahead of time to cover basic safety measures, actions around the aircraft, so that we know that everybody's on the same sheet of music, so that we don't get anybody hurt. We don't do a lot of things on the fly in aviation.
Being a pilot isn't about just flying the aircraft, it's also the pre-flight checks. After calling the unit to check their timeline and calling the Fort Benning weather station to check the height of the ceiling or cloud cover, the pilot makes a determination on whether they can support the mission on the unit's current timeline.
When I come in on a flight, normally Sikorsky has issued me a bird for the day, so after I finish up all my paperwork, that's my last chance to take an overall look at the aircraft by the checklist and make sure there's no standout issues with the aircraft. Weather is something we usually first look into. We come in the mornings, we start looking at weather firsthand, start putting our flight plans in, and weather's pretty much the biggest determining factor whether we're going to fly or not.
Prepping and flying their missions, regular 12-hour days, dealing with difficult weather patterns, and this all while keeping up with the latest training and techniques, the Ranger Flight Company pilots are some of the best that military aviation has to offer.
It's great on a lot of levels, but most importantly, I think, as a Black Hawk pilot, there's a connection to the ground element that it just reminds me of my enlisted days. You spend a lot of time in helicopters as an infantryman, and then to shift back over and to help out on the other side just really brings a lot of joy to the job. So.
As we continue to highlight the hard-working soldiers in the Ranger Flight Company, we'll turn next to the crew chiefs, whose hard work and dedication make every flight possible. Nicole, Randall, Fort Benning TV.
After the break, celebrating the history of civil rights during the African American Black History Month. But first, Fort Benning's Picture This. Every year since 1976, the nation has honored the accomplishments and history of a select group of Americans. This year is no different, as David Wright shows us how Fort Benning celebrates African American Black History Month.
The Maneuver Center of Excellence observed African American Black History Month by taking time to honor the long history of African American military service. Guest speaker Command Sergeant Major Michael Green took this year's theme of civil rights in America as an opportunity to explore our history with an eye towards the future.
I think you have to understand where you've come from, so that you can continue to move forward. We're in a time of the Army where a lot of changes are being made. We're going to go through another integration process, and the Army's leading the way once again. Is we've totally got away from stereotyping individuals due to race, color, creed, and opportunities are open.
Dance for a Cause Ministries also entertained the gathering with a performance of the traditional spiritual Gospel Train, a song that contains references to the Underground Railroad. Sergeant Major Green then took the podium and delivered an address that spotlighted the history of segregated combat units, including efforts in the Civil War and both World Wars. Integration within the Army officially began under President Truman, years ahead of the civilian community.
Commanders who had formerly been against integration decided it didn't matter what color a soldier's skin might be as long as he was a good soldier.
Command Sergeant Major Green states he hopes the research he's done can help interest junior soldiers in African American military history. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
After the break, the prestigious Old Guard honors a basic training ceremony with a performance. The U.S. Army drill team is accustomed to performing for presidents and general officers, but during a visit to Fort Benning, they could be found at the 198th Infantry Brigade. David Wright brings us the details of this rare treat.
The U.S. Army drill team, known as the Old Guard, is the military's oldest active infantry regiment and for more than 60 years has served as the Army's ceremonial unit. Typical duties include general officer retirements, ceremonies at Arlington National Cemetery, and even NFL halftime shows. But today, they can be found at a basic training graduation for the 198th Infantry Brigade.
This is probably one of the few times since the history of the drill team, since 1953, that we've performed for a basic training graduation.
The U.S. Army drill team came to Fort Benning this year for their annual period of isolated training. Fortunately for this new class of infantrymen, this made the Old Guard available for their graduation.
So the drill team each year, at the beginning of the year, takes 3 weeks to write, train, and perform a new routine. And so that's what we did here this year. We are using the opportunity to come down to Fort Benning to help out with some recruitment. And so we thought it would be an excellent opportunity to perform our drill at a graduation and show not only the soldiers but the families that there are specialty units out there to try to get a little bit more interest in the Old Guard.
From dawn to dusk, the days are filled with nothing but physical training and rehearsal. The standard is high, and the Old Guard aims for nothing less than perfection. It might be tempting to see their appearance at this graduation as a mere dress rehearsal, but the drill team doesn't look at it that way at all.
For us, it's a privilege to be here and actually perform, and maybe we can start a precedent in the future and have us come down here to perform and show teamwork and soldiers, when they work together, can accomplish way much more than just an individual.
The drill team keeps a full schedule throughout the year, performing up to 4 times a week across the country. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
Need a car but don't have a lot of cash? I'll show you the MWR car auction that had vehicles flying off the lot on Fort Benning.
The Fort Benning community came out early to scope out some cars and maybe even walk away with a deal at the MWR car auction. For some, this auction was a way to simply buy a car, but for others, it was a collector's dream.
We had different types. We had SUV, vans, small cars, large cars. We did have a trailer too also. So we had different varieties of vehicles.
The process for buying one of these cars was simple. Come early, register, and take a look. The rest will be explained.
They see a vehicle, they go over and do the pre-inspection, take a look at it. It's sold as is, where is, no warranties or guarantees. Make your good inspection and make sure it's what you want to bid on. And once the auction process starts, the auctioneer, he will drop the bid in. From there, the crowd takes it to the level they want to. Whoever wants to buy it the most wins the auction.
And to buy means you have to bid, like one car collector who had been waiting several years to walk away with a particular car.
I noticed this car about a little over 2 years ago, and I was trying to find out the owner or whatever, and then I found out it was going to be auctioned about a year ago, but the paperwork was all messed up. I had to wait a year for it to come available. Luckily today, I beat everybody out getting it.
With over 50 cars to choose from, the day was a success as almost all of these vehicles sold. The money raised from selling these vehicles will help MWR as it supports Fort Benning soldiers and families, with events like the 4th of July celebration and even outdoor rec activities. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
The car auction was a great success, and all the proceeds go to support soldiers and their families, with other great MWR events. Morale, Welfare, and Recreation hosts hundreds of events every year, not to mention daily programs from fitness to childcare. They definitely make Fort Benning a home away from home for Army families. And that will bring this edition of the Benning Report to an end. But you can watch these stories and others on youtube.com/BenningTV or at benning.army.mil. And you can also like us on Facebook. From the Public Affairs Office, thanks for watching.